and all that, but he in particular was hurt by the apparent rise of Pete Buttigieg, who has been rising in the polls after Iowa. I can't say for sure that that's why Joe Biden has decided to go in this direction, but take a look at their most recent ad.
Barack Obama called Joe Biden
best vice president America's ever had.
But Pete Buttigieg doesn't think much of the vice president's record. Let's compare. When President Obama called on him, Joe Biden helped lead the passage of the Affordable Care Act, which gave health care to 20 million people. And when parkgoers called on Pete Buttigieg, he installed decorative lights under bridges, giving citizens of South Bend colorfully illuminated rivers. Both Vice President Biden and former Mayor Buttigieg have taken on tough fights. Under threat of a nuclear Iran, Joe Biden helped to negotiate the Iran deal. And under threat of disappearing pets, Buttigieg negotiated lighter licensing regulations on pet chip scanners. Both Vice President Biden and former Mayor Pete have helped shape our economy. Joe Biden helped save the auto industry, which revitalized the economy of the Midwest, and led the passage and implementation of the Recovery Act, saving our economy from a depression. Pete Buttigieg revitalized the sidewalks of downtown South Bend by laying out decorative brick. And both Biden and Buttigieg have made hard decisions. Despite pressure from the NRA, Joe Biden passed the assault weapons ban through Congress. Then, he passed the Violence Against Women Act. And even when public pressure mounted against him, former Mayor Pete fired the first African-American police chief of South Bend. And then he forced out the African-American fire chief, too. We're electing a president. What you've done matters.
On the Democratic side, that's about as rough as I've seen so far this cycle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Republicans, they pull out the knives, in like seconds notice. But that for a Democrat, that was pretty brutal. The music against Mayor Pete.
Although I don't know if the music were reversed, if I would have been like, yeah, but those lights under the bridges are important. Like, I think half of it was just music in my head.
Yeah.
Well, the music's part of the psychology of the
good score.
Like we were talking about off camera, John, the thing about being vice president, when you take credit for these things, we don't know how involved the vice president is.
It's English toffee.
At a canvas kickoff in Manchester, Joe Biden comparing his experience to that of South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg, defending a new campaign ad against the fellow White House contender.
This guy's not a Barack Obama. Barack Obama had been a United States Senator of a really large state. Barack Obama had laid out a clear vision what he thought the international society should look like and what the order should be.
Biden saying Friday he expects to take a hit in New Hampshire after a lackluster showing in Iowa, but says his campaign is far from over.
I've been down before. I've been down politically and personally before. But I'll be damned if I'm going to, and I've gotten back up. And I'll be damned, though, if I'm going to go down when the whole country's at stake here. The country is at stake here if Donald Trump gets reelected.
Biden will be on the campaign trail here in New Hampshire all the way through Tuesday's First in the Nation primary. Tomorrow, he'll hold events in Hudson and Hampton. In Manchester, Monica Hernandez, WMUR News 9.
Mayor Pete likes to attack me as well, and he's a good man. He calls himself calls me a part of the old failed Washington. Well, really? Was it a failure that I went to Congress to get Obamacare passed into law? Was it a failure when I got past the implementation of the Recovery Act that prevented an economic collapse and another Great Depression? Was it a failure when I worked to get the Iran nuclear deal done? Was it a failure of the Paris Climate Accord, the Violence Against Women Act, the Chemical Weapons Treaty, the Brady Bill, the ban on assault weapons? Was it a failure? Is he really saying that Obama-Biden administration was a failure? Pete, just say it out loud. I have great respect for Mayor Pete and his service to this nation. But I do believe it's a risk, to be just straight up with you, for this party to nominate someone who's never held an office higher than mayor of a town of 100,000 people in Indiana. I do believe it's a risk. He has enormous potential. But I think we need a president who can bring us together, a leader who can unite the party and unite the country.